This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. A big welcome to all our listeners. We are here today with Anna Caramujo from Savvy Cat Realty. Hey, good morning, Anna. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, great. It's a beautiful sunny morning. I was a little bit worried with the red sky in the morning, but Rita assured me a red sky in the morning is not a shepherd's warning in Portugal.
No, it's actually a funny thing. Usually we can tell, or at least that's how I was taught, how the weather will be the next day by the colors of the sunset. If it's warmer colors, like more red and orange tones, it's probably going to be warm the next day. And if it's cooler tones, like purples and pinks, it's probably going to be cold.
Ah, beautiful. I didn't actually know that. I didn't know the detail of that. That's brilliant. I tell you what, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story? Because we did have a little talk before, and I was already fascinated by your story and how you founded Savvy Cat Realty.
Yes, my story is a bit of a roller coaster. So my journey on entrepreneurship was a curious one because my bachelor's degree is in graphic and multimedia design. And when I finished my bachelor's back in 2011, my father just kind of picked me up and said, "Look, we have this huge farm estate that it's historic property, like 16th century property, and it's very, very expensive to maintain, and it's kind of falling apart. Do something about it." And I wasn't very happy about it at the time, you know? It's like I wanted to study fashion design
Yeah, it's a
in
challenge.
Japan.
Oh, wow.
So nothing to do with nothing. But I really, really respected my father. And I know that it was something very important to him, as it was kind of his childhood home. And I decided okay, I'll do this. And I started looking into things, and I knew nothing about entrepreneurship at the time. I said I just came out of graphic and multimedia design course. And so I kind of just started doing courses. I did this entrepreneurship course in the Coimbra University. Then I did kind of a mastermind with mentorship. Then I did kind of a state-sponsored, like the self-employment programs, kind of entrepreneurship program too.
I didn't
And I
didn't realize those existed. That's fascinating because I'm always going on about how we need more entrepreneurs in Portugal, you know?
Oh,
Fantastic.
that's a very long conversation I can have, but I'll finish the
Sorry.
story.
Yeah, don't let me interrupt. Carry on.
So, like I said, I did all these courses and I start building this project, and it was a whole thing. I was still very young, like I was 22, 20, it was between 22 and 26 that I did these things. And I actually went to the Shark Tank program, the first edition.
Oh, really?
So funny thing. Yes, with that project for my father.
Did you meet Tim? Was Tim on it then or not? Tim Vieira?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, he's been a guest on the show.
Yeah, so it was this whole journey, and during this whole process of just creating this project for my father, I ended up creating rural charm hotel project with focus on bird watching because the property is right next to a reserve, the Baixo Lagunar, where there's a number of species of birds.
Beautiful.
And I just created this whole project around this theme. And it was a really, really interesting journey. Like in the end, the activity or the course that I found the most insightful was actually something called Startup Pirates that no longer exists. But it was really, really interesting because they would call actual entrepreneurs that both had successful and unsuccessful stories, that you could just see their journeys, and then they would give you feedback on their projects. And that particular activity, I found it extremely insightful, and I felt like the project really evolved at that time. And then we applied for public funding, because there's there was this there's a number of public funding programs, both for entrepreneurship and for estate recovery, for like historical estate recovery. We just missed the historical estate recovery and had to go for the entrepreneurship one. And ironically, we also had hired some consultants, but ironically, we didn't notice that the deadlines for the loans were different for rural charm hotel projects, for rural projects and normal projects.
Mm.
So for some reason, and it make no sense at all, the normal deadline was 10 years return on the loan. And for rural projects, it was 8 years, which just
Okay.
makes zero sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no one noticed this. And because of this, the project didn't get approved, even though it had a really, really high score. But it wasn't viable on the 8-year return on investment. And I was just so frustrated because I was working on this for like 4 years at this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after this, I just went to work in the Algarve for a while in tourism. And then I just got to the conclusion that, yes, once you start doing something on your own and kind of just being your own boss, working for other people becomes very hard.
Yep.
Okay? So that was kind of a clashing experience, especially because I was working in tourism and I knew everything about tourism regulations, and that didn't go too well with my bosses. So,
Hmm.
so then I kind of started. I also worked for an American company that did tours and excursions and cruises. And then I just started something completely different. I did a Viking tavern. So
Okay.
then I had this Viking tavern it was an itinerary one, and we did festivals and medieval fairs. And then when COVID started, as you can imagine, taverns and COVID aren't very compatible. And so that kind of just went into the back burner. And during this time, I had also purchased a house in Portimão, down in the Algarve. And I purchased it in like 2016. And then I sold it in 2020, the end of 2020. And so I just had a bit of profit from that sale, and it was during COVID. And at the time, my father, it actually was a whole thing because he actually had a prostate tumor and was already admitted on the hospital when COVID started. But then he caught COVID, and it was the start where all the medical facilities were having a really hard time because the professionals were getting sick and there wasn't enough staff. And he got up to go to the bathroom alone because he couldn't call a nurse and fell and just died 2 days
Oh
later.
my goodness. Oh no. I'm sorry. That's
So
awful.
yes, it was a really hard hit on us because actually the feedback we got was that things were under control. Apparently they weren't. He actually was already negative for COVID at the time. It was just bad luck, I guess. And at this time, it just kind of hit me that, time runs out. I always thought I would have more time with my father, and I didn't. And he was the one who got me into this whole entrepreneurship journey that I ended up highly enjoying. And it was COVID, so I was kind of stuck at home, and I just kind of started thinking, okay, what I can do? I want to do something again. I want to kind of make my own money. My goal would have been to be able to fund the project for my father's farm on my own. And I just started thinking, okay, so what can I do? And of course, I thought of property because I'm actually extremely knowledgeable about property. I did this whole tourism project, and my family also has a lot of property investment, and I was involved on it from a very young age, rentals, constructions, licensing, sales. I went through all of that. And the thing is, I never really agreed or liked the way that the real estate market worked here in Portugal. I did try to briefly work for a real estate agency when I was down in the Algarve. And it just didn't make sense for me because in reality, what I saw was that the big majority of the agents, they are actually not that knowledgeable on the technical and legal aspects of things. They are mostly salespeople, and some of them can be good, of course, but there are a lot of them there aren't, and there isn't a lot of accountability on the market. So you have this situation where, just there's very little exclusivity. There's sometimes 10 people selling the same property. They don't communicate between each other. And things are just a bit chaotic. And I never really liked the way that things worked at all. But then I found this lady, this British lady, that was just talking about her journey trying to buy property in the Algarve and how hard it was, especially because of communication. Like, she would out to the listings and they wouldn't come back to her. She would have to go chase them down. And then because she didn't really want a specific location, it was more about the lifestyle and the ideal of the property. She wasn't concerned about location at all. It was very hard to get people to help her. And kind of a light bulb just went out because I'm a bit of a nomad. Before I already said that I lived in Portimão and purchased a house there. But, I was born in Coimbra, then I lived in Peniche, then I lived near Aveiro in Froblin, in my farmer's village. Then we went to Porto, then I went to Caldas de Rainha, then I went down to the Algarve, then I went to Aveiro. So I've been all over the country, really. And I'm very confident on my knowledge of the country. And, there's so much more to Portugal than Porto, Lisbon, and the Algarve.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just thought, I can help these kind of people, these people that come from the outside and don't know our country that well. They want to have a good life, but they don't know where.
Yeah.
So I started building this business model around this. And when I launched in 2021, February 2021, I had my first interview with Carl Munson from Good Morning Portugal.
Ah, yeah.
And it went semi-viral within the community. And all of a sudden, I had like a 3 months waiting list.
Oh, brilliant.
So it was a whole learning experience because from February until like September, I went to just me and this idea and this project to 6 employees. And it was a huge learning experience because we started working a lot with the American market, and there is a lot of culture clashes and a lot of very different expectations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One of them being the speed of communication. In Portugal, we are used that it's okay to take like 3 to 5 days to reply to people. It's not okay for Americans. I learned that very fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was this whole learning experience, and then I was creating this whole business model that was completely new and different from what was on the market because it was built from a lifestyle perspective and from the point of view of actually protecting the buyer, helping them find the best place for them, but also make sure that they are making a good purchase and knowing what they are getting. Because I think that also another thing that commonly happens in the market is that the sellers kind of promise everything. And sometimes those promises aren't exactly executable. So that's another thing. And then that we always make sure, like, I have a legal team that always checks every documentation. We have an inspector that is part of the package to go check the property to make sure everything is in order. Then, of course, the consultation and the advisory side of things when it comes to location and just mediating everything between parts and figuring out what's the best match for each specific client in the whole of Portugal. People have very different needs. If you are used to living in the city and you want to live in the city, you don't want to go to the middle of nowhere, right? You still, it's okay. That makes perfect sense. If that's what's right for you, we just help you find the right neighborhood. But then, of course, there's the people who actually want to be in a more calm spot surrounded by nature. And sometimes there is a lot more options on that. So there's a lot to figure out, and this tends to be a fairly long journey. We usually work with our clients for at least 6 months, some clients for years, depending on the kind of project, because we also support with construction and renovation, and we kind of accompany that whole process. So I just ended up creating this service that it's all-in-one package from the start, from trying to figure out what's the right visa and how to make those first steps right, then figuring out the right location, then negotiating and verifying the property. And then if there is any changes or construction or renovations that needs to be done, we also help people and accompany people in this process to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible. So there was a very big learning curve, because this was a very complex process and service, and there was a lot that I learned on these first years, both when it came to culture clashes and expectations, and also, the internal workings of companies in Portugal, because even though I had 2 previous projects, this was my first time actually, building something with employees in a big structure like this.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I mean, what do you think some of the most common mistakes are that clients make when relocating, either in the property or legal paperwork, or even just sort of misunderstanding lifestyle?
I mean, like I said, the communication expectations it's often one of the
I've
biggest, most
experienced
common
that.
ones. People get very, very frustrated
Yeah.
with the slow communication they experience here in Portugal. And rightly so, to be honest, things are very inefficient.
Yeah.
Then another thing is that sometimes people are in a rush. They want to, buy something or rent something as quickly as possible. And often that isn't
That's not the
the
best
best.
thing.
They
Yeah.
ended up rushing their decisions and not checking things and not, going through the process. We actually have a number of clients that sometimes we advise not doing certain things and they still do them. So I understand this is a very big process, a very big change. It can be very stressful when you are, literally moving to a different country, sometimes with your whole family attached.
Yeah.
But I do think that, just grounding yourself, one of the things we often recommend when we have this on our website, we have this workbook that we recommend people going through before they start their process to kind of just figure out their priorities and what's most important for them, because that's one of the things we always try to work out is what are the non-negotiables and what are the negotiables. I mean, there's those things that you absolutely want. Let's imagine if you want kids, you want to be, let's say, within 15 minutes drive to their school. Let's say that what's the budget? That's extremely significant because the costs of housing in Portugal can vary very drastically on location. So we try to work these details with people first. So when we go through the actual work and the looking at properties and so on, we make sure they are aligned with what the client wants. Because sometimes when people are stressed and frustrated, they kind of tend to rush into things that are not the best for them.
I think I perhaps lived in about five different locations before I specifically chose which place I wanted to live and buy a property. I think it took me it was about 5 years of different rentals.
Yes, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, because if you are doing that on your own, I mean, if you are going into a completely new country that you don't know, and especially if you are not having someone guiding you, that process of knowing the country can take quite a while.
Yeah, because you can drive around and you can view an area. You get just a glimpse of that area because
Yes.
depending on the time of year that you drive around,
Yeah.
Portugal can change drastically between the summer months and the winter months, and yeah, there's a lot of variables, and I think it's
And that's one of the things. I mean, all of my team are locals. We are all Portuguese that lived. We have my team is spread out through Portugal. I mean, it's divided by regions. Like I have someone in the Algarve and the Alentejo, then someone in the Lisbon area, then someone in the Silver Coast area, then someone in the center area, someone in the north area. And these people, they live there all their lives. They know these locations very well, and they are especially because my company is going to turn 5 years in February, and most of my staff has been, a lot of them have been since the start, and I think my youngest staff is going to be 3 years. So they have been working on this for a bit, and we are able to, hear people and say, okay, this location makes sense for this person because we both live there and, been helping people figure out the right place for a while.
Congratulations. Yeah, I mean, you know what? One of the things that I don't really understand about the realty market is I've bought and sold a couple of properties now, but I am not sure of who the real estate agent and the client is. Is the client the seller of the property that they're listing, or is it the person who is looking for a property?
That's the
That
thing.
is something I'm unsure about.
Yeah, the standard system here in Portugal is that the seller hired the real estate agency and there's a commission. The standard commission tends to be 5%. It can vary a bit, like it can be 4, it can be 6, but it generally is around 5%. And the standard practice is to divide it 50-50 between the seller representative and the buyer representative. And what happens with this is that because, like I said, there is no exclusivity in the market, and there's often multiple agents listing the same property. And this is also due to real estate agencies and real estate agents in Portugal tend to actually have a very bad reputation. Most Portuguese people don't like real estate agencies at all and kind of work with them out of necessity and not out of wanting to.
Okay.
So what happens is a number of things. So one is what I mentioned, that there's often these multiple people listing the same property that don't communicate within themselves. And then sometimes there's a lot of listings that are actually sold in the markets. So that can be a frustrating point. It's also common for agencies to leave the listings on even though they are already sold and they know they are sold, to get leads and contacts. And another thing, because of this system, like I said, generally it is the seller that pays to the agencies. And this commission system is that a lot of agencies will try to avoid working with a buyer agent and sometimes even refuse to show housing because they don't want to share the commission, which I think it's terrible practice from a professional view because the interest of their client is to sell the house.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that their clients don't know that these agencies are kind of refusing clients because they will get less money because they have to split the commission. So
and I think
that can be one of the factors.
Listings is a big challenge to achieve, right? I think from friends of mine who are into real estate, they often find that just getting the listings is quite a challenge.
It is, like I said, because people have a lot of distrust from real estate agents. And I mean, when I sold my property in Portimão, and I've sold other property in it's when I first listed the house on my own on like the main websites. I got like 30 agents calling me just to list it. It can be like you get more calls from agents than from actual clients. It can be a bit frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because there is no exclusivity and you can like have 10 agencies listing the same property. Then they kind of becomes a competition to see who can sell first because they don't get paid otherwise. They literally only get paid if they sell the property. So this makes it so often kind of rush things and make unrealistic promises because they don't get paid unless they sell.
Yeah. Yeah. I did read in the Portugal resident newspaper the other day that there was a big scandal in the Algarve. There was a whole project where a bunch of real estate agents and lawyers and various other different bodies were involved, were selling off-plan properties that didn't exist, or off-plan properties that actually belonged to somebody else who was already living in them, and people were turning up on the doorstep of somebody's house and saying, we're going to be showed around by a real estate agent, and the property owner going, I don't know why, because I'm not selling and I'm living here. That's right. And also I heard of someone, I read somewhere of a family, I think from Denmark, arriving for their holiday, thinking that they had a property rented on Airbnb, and they arrived on somebody's doorstep and they were like, no, our house is not on Airbnb. So you really have to find somebody you trust, and you have to find...
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stories. Like a friend of my mom's, the agent literally scammed her and sold her property to his company at a much lower than market price to then resell it at a higher price.
That's an obvious one.
There's so many things. There's the properties that were sold like 20 times for golden visas. There's so many terrible scandals on the real estate market. It's absurd.
So if I'm a client, and if I'm thinking to move to Portugal, how do I avoid? Of course, come to you. But what do I need to be looking out for, and how do I assess whether a realty company
I would think it's very hard to assess things on your own. I think one of the most important things, it's always have someone foremost on your side. I would definitely recommend a buyer's agent, because a buyer's agent is actually working for you as a buyer. While the agent selling the house, as you can see, there's a lot of conflict of interest and a lot of issues that can happen. There's good people on the market, of course there are, but it's also a lot of bad ones. So I would always recommend at least a lawyer. I would say buyer's agents ideally, and for example, my service then includes the lawyer support and the inspection and so on. You can also hire a lawyer directly, and lots of them also do these verifications and processes. But as a foreigner, especially as someone that doesn't speak Portuguese and doesn't know the Portuguese regulations, I really don't recommend doing things alone and working just directly with the seller agent. I mean, it can go well, but if it goes badly, it is a very, very expensive mistake.
And it's actually, I think I went through 6 lawyers in my time of buying and selling properties. I found a really good one now, and I've been with her for a few years. But even the lawyers, I found like what you were saying, I was having to chase. I was having to, there was no proactivity there, and I was having to chase, what is this? What do I need to do now?
That's unfortunately a very Portuguese thing.
Yeah. It's not, actually, I've had experiences like this in other countries as well. I think sometimes there is bad companies and good companies. I think it's almost as simple as that. I even had one.
But when it comes to proactivity, I would say a very, very small percentage of Portuguese companies are proactive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know whether that's because they're overloaded. One of the lawyers actually said to me, she said, I just have to take less clients, because the more clients I get over a tax threshold, and I have to pay more in tax. That was one of the excuses my lawyers said to me. She said,
well, that's relative, because lawyers are kind of self-employed, so they do have the tax bracket, and if they go over a certain value, they do get taxed more, but that's the same for everyone.
Yeah.
But overall, I do think sometimes it's the issue of, if you take too many clients, you cannot keep up with all of them. But I do think that, like you said, lawyers also, it's very hard to find proactive lawyers in Portugal.
Yeah. Well, it's really nice to be able to hear what you're doing, and I think it's going to be very, very helpful to listeners and people thinking about investing in Portugal, or if you're already in Portugal and you've been renting and you're still looking for a house.
Yes,
I
we work with
watch.
both rentals and purchases. We
Yeah.
have both the rental packages and the buying packages.
Hmm.
And we also do residential tours as a standalone service. So you can just book a 1-day tour in an area and we will do the whole tailored thing.
Right.
First we get a call with you to figure out what is it that you are looking for. And then we tailor the tour to go to places that think that we fit your needs.
Hmm.
So this is a standalone service that you can find in our website
Hmm.
too. And you can also get the advisory calls, and we also have free clarification calls if you have questions about our services. So all of this can be found in www.savvycatrealty.com.
Brilliant.
We list everything very transparently. This has also been kind of a core value of mine. I always like one of the most important things for me was, safety and transparency. So all of our prices are listed and everything is very clear. And another thing that it's kind of a core value, and one of the reasons I started this is because another thing that often happens is that foreigners often end up overpaying for property because they don't know the internal market as well. And that inflates the market and is not good for anyone. I mean, it's only good for the sellers and real estate agents.
Mm.
And it's not good for the locals because the property rises in prices very quickly. I do believe that's one of the main reasons the property rise in prices very quickly is because there is so little control on the market, and the sellers and real estate agents can kind of do everything they want. And a lot of foreigners would come here and wouldn't realize they were overpaying, and now the prices became super inflated. So that's another thing that we kind of want to avoid. We kind of want to make sure people are making good purchases that are not inflated within the local market.
Yeah, interesting. I had quite a cool experience. I did it with two properties. I rented them for the winter. Like I did a 6-month lease, long-term lease for 6 months. And I made a deal with the owner and the agent. I said, well, I'm going to live here for 6 months with the possibility just to check out whether I want to purchase. And perhaps if I did decide to purchase, we can knock the rental off the price. And I think that's kind of a nice way because, with a house, you really have to sort of understand it and feel it and, feel if you like the area. It worked pretty well. Not very well for the seller because I decided not to live in either of those houses because I noticed so many problems.
Yeah, but that's what we call arrendamento com promessa de compra, so
Okay.
basically rental with promise of purchase.
Yeah.
And it can be done, yes, but it's very hard to find sellers and owners that are willing to do this because,
Mm.
like you said, it's a big risk for the seller and kind of just delays their proper process so there's a very, very little amount of sellers that are willing
Mm.
to do
Mm.
this.
And you
And the
can't have
ones that are willing to do this tend to be on the slower markets, like more
well.
interior and more calmer areas
Yeah.
where they don't get a lot of buyers'
Yeah.
interest.
Well, this was 13 years ago up in Val
Yeah.
d'Italia. There was so many. It was such a strange time because there was these beautiful villas with swimming pools and everything. And I don't know whether they bought them at the time when they were promised that this whole area was becoming something that it like another Villa Moura or something, and it kind of didn't. But still, the properties were beautiful, and it tended to be like a retiring age couples that had these properties, and they found that they were too far out of town. And 13 years ago,
Yeah.
you could pick up a 3-bedroom villa with a swimming pool for like 160,000 euros or something, which was
Yeah.
crazy. Those
I
very
mean,
same.
my apartment, it was the one that I bought in Portimão. It was right in the center of Portimão, literally next to the market. The building was like 6 years old, and it was a 2-bedroom, 100 square meter with a jacuzzi tub.
Nice.
I paid 140K for it.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. It's crazy,
Good
isn't it?
times, good
Good
times.
times. No, I had the same thing. I had a tiny little house in Algesur, and I remember I had it on Airbnb. It was a beautiful little house up on the impossible to live there permanently.
And at this time, when I bought this apartment in Portimão, there was literally two completely separate markets in the Algarve.
Yeah.
There was the market priced for locals, and then there was the market priced for foreigners. It was literally two completely different markets, and sometimes the properties were listed at different prices depending on where they were. I mean, when I sold my property, I had one of these sleazy agents kind of just saying, "Oh, if I list your property, if I sell it for like 250, can I keep the rest of the money?" And I was just looking at him like, "What the hell, dude?"
That's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting market, and I think it's such a beautiful place to live, and I can see why demand is so high for property. And but people need to be careful. They need to find somebody like you that they can trust, who can offer a whole entire service. Turnkey service is very beautiful.
Yes, that's our goal, is kind of to help people all the way until they are actually settled here. And like I said, it can be a long process. Like when it comes to purchase, I think the quickest process we had was like 5 months. And it was like the client picked the house within the first month, and then it was dealing with everything else. And I have clients that have been with me since the start. I have like a big investment client. I have a big project in Porto, actually. It's like a 50 million, 145 apartment complex.
Crazy.
And I've been working with him since 2021.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And Anna, what happened to the family estate? Did you manage to convert it in the end and renovate?
No, it's still waiting for enough money to get it happening, because at the time when I first made the project, it would be around 1.4 million. And right now, with the increases of costs and everything, it's at least 2 million to get it done. I still don't have that money.
Yeah, it's a shame. There's so many properties. I can see that around our area and everything. There's some absolute beautiful properties that are just crying out to be renovated and crying out for some love. We need some I don't know, some banks to take a little bit of
That's one of the very frustrating things. I mean, on my journey as an entrepreneur, I mean, like I said, it was a lot of learning, and it was a very rewarding one. I think I grew a lot as a person, but the financial aspects of things was definitely very frustrating. Like I said, I started this whole thing on my own with the profit from the sale of my Portimão house.
Yeah.
We are talking about 40K. So I built this whole thing with 40K.
Yeah.
And it was hard because in the first years, it's normal in companies. You put money in, but you don't get it out immediately. So there was a lot of learning, and the taxes are very hard. And one of the hard lessons I made is like, you have to pay the state first, even if you don't agree with it. Because it's like, for me, I would think I want to pay my employees first, because they're the ones working for me. And they are people that need to pay their bills, right?
Yeah.
But no, the thing here in Portugal is that if you don't pay the state first, you get fined, and it costs you a lot more money. And yes, it was a learning experience. And honestly, looking back, I should have gotten a partner and an investor and started with more money, and I would have struggled a lot less. But I didn't know how to do that at the time, and I'm kind of one of those hyper independent persons that kind of tries to do everything on her own. And it really burned me out, to be honest. It burned me out. I burned out really bad. But yeah, I'm kind of burned out badly at mid-late 2023. You probably heard in the late 2022, 2023, they made all of these changes to the golden visa and the visa, the NHR and so on. And in 2022, I had invested a lot in growth. And I wasn't expecting at all of this government changes, and the way they did them was terrible. I think the changes in their self made sense, but the way they did them was absolutely terrible and created a lot of break of trust in the market and the government itself.
Yep.
From an international perspective. So it did affect the business and so on. So yes, then I struggled, and what we were talking all of this because of the banks here in Portugal. They don't do risk really.
No.
They will only loan when there is guarantees, and it was a hard time for me, and I got through it, and now things are getting a bit better and a bit stable. But also the way that I'm the reason there isn't more people doing things the way I do is because it's very expensive.
Yeah.
Because I have all these people on payroll. I pay lawyers, I pay inspectors, and this has a very high burn, a very high cost. And I am very confident in the quality of service I offer. But as a business, it was definitely a learning curve, because one of the things I learned as a business owner is you do have to put the business and the profits first.
Yeah. And sometimes when you
Because
have a little bit too many costs, and then the market
I was
is
a
a little
bit
bit risky.
too much of a nice person. I wanted to offer good conditions for my employees. I wanted to offer a great service for my clients, and I do believe I offer a great service for my clients, but that does come at a very high cost for me.
And you can do that if you have the ability to make a 5-year forecast, and that that you can make an estimation without the government suddenly changing the goalposts. And that's, I'm sure. I spoke to a very interesting guy, as a friend of mine actually. He's an economist. We did a podcast episode together, and he's a statistician for the government. And he was saying the biggest challenges Portugal faced and the problems that we need to solve is, firstly, liquidity, and secondly, having consistent goalposts. Just constantly, radically changing the goalpost and things. It's a nightmare for companies to try to forecast where they're going to be in 5 or 10 years' time. And the fact that it's very hard to get liquidity in the market, it's very hard to get funding, very hard to
because
find
the
flow of
taxes
money.
are absurd.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if I paid, let's say, 20% less taxes, things would be so much better for my company. Honestly, this is ridiculous, but I pay more to the state than all of my employees and myself together.
Me too.
It's
and then during COVID,
it becomes very frustrating.
And during COVID, I had a big gripe because I'd been paying a lot of taxes for my company over the time, and for staff, and you understand, national insurance contributions.
Yeah.
And during COVID, I was told, you cannot go to work. All right. But after all those contributions I've made for, in effect, as an insurance against you not having work, I didn't get any.
That's
help.
the irony, because we pay all of this, and then we don't get anything back.
I know, and I was there, and money was leaving my bank account that I was saving just to literally buy food, and I was thinking, this is completely crazy. Why would I be contributing this as a national insurance when it is not an insurance for me? So you have to be careful. I think you have to understand.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's definitely people that have good and profitable businesses in Portugal, but you have to be very, very careful when you come to Portugal to do business, because there's a lot of taxes, there's a lot of strange laws, there's a lot of things that are not in the company's favor. So you really need to plan things out very thoroughly and have someone on a side that knows what they're doing. That was actually one of my big mistakes when I started, kind of doing everything on my own, and naively hoping for the best. and offering good conditions from the start. I also didn't have the best legal advice, and those mistakes become very, very costly.
Yeah. It's almost like a political, economic, philosophical debate. It's, do we tax companies so that we can pay, the money goes to the state, and then the state can then employ a bunch of people to rubber stamp documents? Or should we let the entrepreneurs pay less tax so that they generate employment and they generate economy basically by employing more staff and being able to pay their staff more? And that, I'm in favor of the latter. I'm in favor
No,
of
I do think that
making
needs
it
to
more
be a
fluid.
balance. Like
Yeah.
if you look at different kind of policies on this, for example, America, it is extremely successful at generating high income and a very competitive and active job market that we definitely don't have in Portugal. And I would say most of Europe is nowhere. There's some kind of clutches in Europe that are quite active, but not nearly as much as the US. I do think that it's opposite polarities.
Mm.
Because in the US, you have that, but it's an extremely capitalistic mentality. There's absolutely no employment safety. There is no, maternity leave. There's no sick leave. There's even not a guaranteed or mandatory vacation pay. It's
And a lot of
I
people
don't
fall.
defend that.
Yeah, a lot of people fall by the wayside as well. They can't compete in that way. They can't be part of that type of
Yes.
system,
And
and they
when
fall.
I went 3 months to the US last year as kind of my rebranding or just a restructuring strategy. And it bothered me in the sense that the sensation I got is that the worst thing you can do in the US is to be poor.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
It's like there's no support, there is no social security, there's no health, there is no maternity, there is no support at all if you don't have money. And I don't agree with that at all. But I also think that the system we have here is kind of too extreme on the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
The I think there's excessive protection on employees' rights in a way that, as a small company, one of the biggest expenses and issues I had is when I had hire people that were bad hires. It was very, very, very hard to fire them because of the way that the system works. And I would have to be paid for paying someone that was not productive for like 6 months until I could fire them. It's absurd.
Yeah, yeah,
For a small company, we cannot sustain this kind of things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then also for the employees point of view as well. Like a lot of jobs here are underpaid in some ways for the time that they have to spend and what you have to buy and the rent you have to pay, the fuel you have to
And
pay,
I
the car.
agree. I agree. Especially Lisbon is absurd. I mean, our minimum wage is what, 890 now
Mm-hmm,
or
mm-hmm.
something like that, and the average rent in Lisbon is 1,500.
Yeah, 700 for a room in Lisbon.
Yeah.
You
Mm.
know, completely crazy. Yeah, I
And,
think.
and it's like what we're saying. Like, as a small company, I do really try to offer good conditions to my employees. But when half of the money I make goes to the state, it becomes very hard.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I think Portugal, we there's been so much change in the last 10 years, I guess, and I think we are catching up in some respects. There's some teething problems. I think the government is spinning a little bit, and that's one of the reasons why I get so frustrated with the media at the moment, because the media focus always tends to be on just some crazy things when we should be trying to educate the people and the voter about the issues that we're talking about. The nitty gritty things, the reality that, companies are
And
getting
that,
taxed
yeah,
a
that
lot.
can be
They need to be able
that's
to employ more people. We need to put more money into the system, and these are the real folks. These are the real things because
I
everybody
agree.
benefits
And
from a
I
good
think that's
economy.
one of the big problems in Portugal is that the financial education is terrible. I mean, most people have no idea how the economy works and how to make money and how to keep money. And most of them are very frustrated. I mean, I would say there's a statistic on that, but I think
Mm,
it's like 67% of the population lives on the poverty line.
yeah, I wouldn't be
And
surprised.
these people are very, very frustrated, and rightly so, but they don't understand how to fix this issue, and they tend to let out their frustrations. And, employers are the bad guys, and the companies are the bad
Hmm.
guys, and the politicians capitalize on this.
Yeah, and then we get
And,
nowhere.
and yeah, and it doesn't solve any problem because it kind of makes the situation worse.
Yeah, it just sort of breeds more negativity. I'm seeing it all. I don't know whether it's just the algorithms that are on my Instagram or on my news feeds, but it just drives me crazy. It's just like it's the shocking headlines and all of these other kind of things in the media, which is just distracting people from understanding how you could just your single vote can help. If we could somehow make it more clear, somehow educate the voting public of what we can do. And there is a distrust of entrepreneurs. I've often had this
There is.
conversation
It's
with
very
people.
frustrating as an entrepreneur to hear the general public talk, how they talk about companies. And I mean that it's true. There's a lot of bad bosses and not very ethical people running companies. But those of us who are actually trying to create something good for everyone involved, it becomes very frustrating to, constantly be criticized as someone taking advantage of others.
Yeah. 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 And the opportunity is there for everybody. Let's face it. You everybody can be an entrepreneur. Your story is a perfect example. Like you went to you didn't follow exactly what you imagined that you wanted to do with your career in fashion, and you focused on something that initially was you were not certain of, but you focused on getting some trainings in different areas, and look where that's led you.
Yes,
I think we
yes.
need to be realistic
I
and
really
resilient.
enjoyed the journey, but it was definitely not the one I was expecting to take. I think that's the thing about entrepreneurship. I think the most important quality in entrepreneurs is adaptability and resilience, because
Mm,
you will constantly be facing things that you were not planning for, or hurdles. There's just so many hurdles on the way.
mm,
And I think the what truly makes a difference to become a successful entrepreneur is how often and how long you can rise.
yeah,
Because you are there's often so many things going wrong, and it's just about the resilience to get back up and find the solutions.
yeah.
I think that's the hardest part of being an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
and that's the reason why not it's not for everyone. Because if you don't have that ability, you won't be able to keep going.
Yeah. I've often said that success comes from doing the things that other people are just not willing to do. Not in
Yeah.
terms of cutting corners, but in terms of hard work and in terms
Yes.
of
As in
focusing
terms
your
of keep
business on
going
areas.
when things are even when things aren't great.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, what you did, you put a lot in many cases. The beginning of your business, you put the client first. You wanted to look after them. And I would imagine other people
Yes, I would put
may.
my client and my team first. Thankfully, now I'm in the place where I no longer, or at least for now, let's hope it stays that way. I no longer have to make that choice of who am I paying first.
Mm,
But it's definitely a very, very stressful situation.
yeah, yeah. Well, Anna, it's been a really interesting chat, and I think our audience is going to get a lot from this. And I'm going to put in the show notes how they can get in contact with you. But do you want to just say your website address again? It's
Yes.
savvycatrealty.pt or .com?
No, .com. It's
.com.
www.savvycatrealty.com. You can also reach us directly at contact.savvycatrealty.com.
Okay.
And we are on Instagram, YouTube mostly, but we also are on Facebook and recently TikTok. I have to see how that's going.
Yeah. I'm kind of playing a little bit on TikTok. I really don't want to, but we have to do these things, right?
Yes, social media is, very hungry beast.
Yeah, I would love to just have some kind of platform that I can just do one post and it just goes out to every single different social media thing because it's so tiring. And I really hate picking up the phone and dealing with that. But it works, and there we go. There's good and the bad.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Tends to be the case with everything.
Yeah, exactly. Anna, so nice to speak with you, and wish you all the luck with your business and your enterprises and your team. Actually, I'm sure they're very happy working for you and all your clients, and I wish you all the luck in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope you have a great rest of week too.
Yeah, busy one.
That your podcast keeps growing.
Yeah, it's a busy one. This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal, Voices of Portugal, Stories for the World, signing out. 6 feet under the rock, I'm gonna dig a hole and hide on my magazines. All the spots are not obscene, I just need some time, some focusing. I got the pen, I got the sheet, I got my plan, I got my screen. Someone tell me please the reasoning.